Mr. Mobub had always shared a special bond with his daughter Sabina, but over time, that relationship took a troubling turn. It all began during the nights when Mr. Mobub would stay at his farm, leaving Sabina and her two younger brothers, Nahid and Niloui, alone at home. While the exact details are unclear, it's known that Nahid and Niloui began forcing Sabina into situations she couldn't refuse. Being alone and outnumbered, Sabina felt powerless to resist and eventually gave in to their demands. What started as an isolated incident became a repeated pattern whenever Mr. Mobub was away attending to his farm duties. Hello and welcome to our channel. Today we're diving into another chilling real-life story that will leave you speechless. This time, the story takes us to a suburban area in Bangladesh, Kurugram. Kurugram is a district in the Rangpur division, located in the northern part of the country. Known for its unique and diverse characteristics, most of the people here rely on farming for their livelihood. But beneath the peaceful exterior of this district lies an unsettling tale about a family with an unusual and disturbing dynamic. It begins with the son, and shockingly, the father eventually follows in his footsteps. What exactly happened in this case? Stay tuned as we uncover the full story and explore it in greater depth. Let's get started. Before we jump into the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And of course, share this story with your friends. It's one you'll want to talk about. So, here's how it begins. In Kurugram, there was a man named Mobub, born in 1960. In his younger days, he worked as a civil servant in the Mahendranagar area before eventually moving to Kurugram. Mobub was known for being handsome, confident, and authoritative. In 1984, he married and started a family. His daughter Sabina was born in 1987, followed by two sons, Nahid and Niloui, who were just a year apart in age. Tragically, Mobub's wife passed away in 2000, leaving him to raise their three children alone. After taking early retirement, Mobub turned his attention to farming. With a large farm and a team of employees, he managed to provide well for his family, ensuring they never faced financial hardship. Sabina, being the only daughter, was raised with special attention and love. In 2003, she enrolled at a well-known university to study business, supported by her father's dedication. After graduation, she struggled to find work, as job opportunities for women in the region were limited. Eventually, through her father's connections, she became a teacher at a private junior high school, a job that suited her love for children. Her brothers, Nahid and Niloui, had a very different experience. Unlike Sabina, their father didn't push them toward higher education. Instead, he had them assist with running the farm, which became their primary responsibility. Mobub's bond with Sabina was noticeably close. While some saw it as a natural dynamic, given that he had to play the role of both father and mother, others found their closeness unusual. Relatives and friends occasionally noticed moments that felt too intimate, sparking rumors that their relationship went beyond the typical father-daughter bond. To dispel the growing whispers, in 2012, Mobub began courting Hasina, a widowed woman with one child. Hasina was 11 years younger than Mobub, and while he was already retired and managing his large rice fields, she likely saw him as a stable partner who could offer her security in her later years. After a 4-month courtship, the two married in July 2012. At the time, Mobub was 53, and Hasina was 42. Following the marriage, Hasina moved into Mobub's home with her 19-year-old daughter, Nazia, bringing new dynamics to the household. The relationship between Sabina and her stepsister Nazia was far from harmonious. Sabina always seemed to believe that Hasina, her stepmother, and Nazia were simply taking advantage of her father, not genuinely caring for him. Despite Nazia's attempts to build a connection, offering friendly greetings and trying to bond, Sabina never took her seriously. Hasina and Nazia chose to stay positive, hoping Sabina just needed time to adjust. They believed that eventually, things would improve. In 2013, Mobub enrolled Nazia in college, a moment that filled the young girl with joy. However, this only fueled Sabina's resentment. She felt her father's money was being drained by his new wife and stepdaughter. Sabina often refused to come home, becoming increasingly distant and hard to reach. Nearly a year into the marriage, her animosity toward Hasina hadn't eased, and Mobob's attempts to mediate the tension were met with rejection. The breaking point came when Sabina disappeared for 2 weeks, refusing to return home. The stress of worrying about his daughter caused Mobob to fall ill and lose significant weight. Only when he was hospitalized did Sabina return, breaking down in tears at the sight of her frail father. In May 2014, tensions boiled over during a heated argument between Sabina and Hasina. Hoping to ease the situation, Hasina began by apologizing for any hurt caused by her marriage to Mobob. She reassured Sabina that she wasn't trying to replace her late mother, but wanted to be a supportive figure for both Sabina and Mobob. However, Sabina rejected her stepmother's olive branch, firmly declaring that she didn't like her, didn't want her there, and wished for her to leave. At 28 years old, Sabina felt she had lost everything since Hasina and Nausea entered her father's life. His attention, time, and money. Despite Mobob's efforts to mediate, Sabina's resentment never subsided. To make matters worse, Mobob often tried to win back Sabina's favor by spending more time with her, even sleeping in her room instead of with Hasina. While Hasina tried to rationalize this behavior as Sabina seeking comfort from a father she deeply depended on, the situation became increasingly uncomfortable. By 2016, after 3 years of marriage marked by constant conflict, Hasina made the painful decision to request a separation. She felt there was no happiness in their relationship, as the bond between Mobob and Sabina was too strong to break. Respecting this, Hasina returned to her hometown of Fulbury but begged Mobob to allow Nausea to stay and complete her education, as Hasina couldn't afford to support her daughter's schooling. Mobob agreed, promising to treat Nausea as his own. In March 2016, their divorce was finalized, and Hasina officially left Mobob's life. Nausea, however, remained in the household to continue her studies, even though her relationship with Sabina remained strained. Despite the fractured family dynamics, Mobob honored his commitment to Nausea, ensuring she could build a better future. Meanwhile, Sabina continued to hold tightly to her father, her bitterness shaping the family's troubled history. In 2017, Sabina started dating a man named Naeem Gardera, who was a year older than her. Naeem, once a soccer coach, had transitioned into a career as a referee and was actively involved with the Kurigram Regional Sports Union. Their relationship was rocky from the start, largely because of Sabina's mood swings and demanding nature. For example, if Naeem was late picking her up from work, she'd sulk for days. If he took too long to reply to her messages, she accused him of cheating. And if he didn't show up one evening because of muddy roads, she'd lash out. Naeem constantly felt like he had to be on call to keep her happy. Their frequent arguments led to several breakups. However, under pressure from Mr. Mobob, who promised to buy Naeem a house and a car, the two finally got married in June 2018. Sabina was 32, and Naeem was 33. The first couple of months seemed promising. Naeem bent over backward to keep Sabina happy, even rushing to fulfill her every whim. But over time, Sabina began spending more and more time at her parents' house. Naeem, wanting to be close to her, reluctantly ended up staying at his in-laws' home often. It was during these visits that Naeem noticed Sabina's harsh attitude toward her stepsister, Nausea. At the time, Nausea was doing an internship at an insurance company, and Sabina often belittled her. She'd say things like, "You don't need to live here. Your internship is already paid for." Nausea would explain that she just wanted to help take care of their father, but Sabina snapped back, "I'll take care of him. You don't need to come home every day. I'll move in here with my husband." Nausea eventually admitted her internship salary wasn't much, and staying at home helped her save money. But Sabina's constant nagging pushed her to move in with a friend instead. After that, Nausea only came home once a week to check on her father and handle his medications. Meanwhile, Naeem, unhappy about staying at his in-laws' house, was forced to do so more often because Sabina rarely came home to their place. Things reached a breaking point in May 2020, during the pandemic lockdown. With no matches to referee and no income coming in, Naeem was stuck at home, feeling unwanted and ignored by his wife. Sabina refused to sleep next to him anymore, further straining their relationship. During the lockdown, the whole family, including Nausea, gathered at Mr. Mobub's house. Naeem confided in Nausea about his frustrations, asking, "Why does Sabina always sleep with her father? I get that he's her dad, but she's a grown woman with a husband. It's just not right." That's when Nausea opened up about her mother's experience. She explained how her stepmother, Hasina, had faced a similar situation. Mr. Mobub consistently chose to sleep in Sabina's room rather than with his wife, which ultimately led to their divorce. Feeling like he couldn't take it anymore, Naeem filed for divorce in July 2020, just 2 years into their marriage. Sabina didn't seem particularly upset by the separation. She was content knowing she had been married and wouldn't be labeled an old maid. In May 2021, Nausea moved out of her father's house to start a new chapter. She returned to her former internship at an insurance company and rented a small place of her own. Despite living separately, she still visited regularly to check on her father, Mr. Mobub, and occasionally dropped off food or other essentials. After all, Mobub had done so much for her, and he enjoyed her company. One early morning in June, Nausea stopped by to deliver a religious book her father had ordered. She was surprised to find the house in complete disarray, with an errand boy mentioning that a wedding had taken place there the night before. When Nausea asked who had gotten married, the boy refused to say. Her father brushed it off, claiming a relative had rented the house for the event. Nausea didn't press further since she wasn't familiar with many of her father's relatives. Months passed, and by November, Nausea began noticing something unusual. Sabina's body looked fuller, her belly slightly rounded. It struck Nausea that her stepsister might be pregnant. But if that were true, it couldn't be Naeem's child. Sabina and Naeem had been divorced for over a year and a half. Curious and concerned, Nausea decided to reach out to Naeem. She sent him a message, mentioning Sabina's apparent pregnancy. Naeem, still harboring resentment towards Sabina, grew suspicious. He had long believed there was something inappropriate about Sabina's relationship with her father, and if this pregnancy was tied to that, he was determined to expose it. On December 3, 2021, Naeem decided to confront Sabina directly. When he arrived at Mobub's house, he found her with an unmistakably pregnant belly. Sabina claimed to be 6 months along but refused to reveal who the father was. Frustrated, Naeem went home and contacted a lawyer friend, explaining the situation and his suspicions. Naeem revealed that during their marriage, Sabina had never allowed him to be intimate with her, which further fueled his belief that the child might not just be anyone's, it might be her father's. He had even caught Sabina and Mobub in compromising situations twice before but couldn't report it without solid evidence. Now, he saw the unborn child as a way to prove the truth through DNA testing. However, his lawyer friend explained the legal complications. While DNA testing could prove the paternity of the child, only Mobub would face punishment under the law. Sabina, as the woman involved, wouldn't be penalized for the alleged deviant relationship. By mid-December 2021, tensions came to a head. Nausea sent a message to Naeem, saying she had been in a physical altercation with Sabina following a heated argument. Naeem decided to confront the situation once and for all. When he arrived at Mobub's house, the atmosphere was chaotic. Sabina was furious, accusing Nausea of feeding Naeem information about her personal life. She ranted about how her ex-husband had no right to meddle and how Nausea wasn't even her biological sister. But Naeem was done staying silent. He shouted back, unleashing years of frustration. He accused Sabina of keeping him in a loveless, distant marriage, pulling back every gift and promise he had been given, and most disturbingly, engaging in inappropriate behavior with her own father. He openly called their actions disgusting, referencing the moments he had witnessed but had been powerless to prove. Mr. Mobub suddenly appeared, tears streaming down his face, and yelled for everyone to stop shouting in his house. As the tension filled the room, Nausea stepped toward her stepfather, but Sabina grabbed a vase from the table and smashed it over Nausea's head. Nausea crumpled to the floor, clutching her bleeding head. In the chaos, Naeem, enraged by Sabina's actions, shoved her into the corner of the dining room. He repeatedly slammed her head against the wall with his powerful hands, despite Mr. Mobub's attempt to intervene. Overwhelmed by Naeem's strength, Mobub could only watch in horror as Naeem tightened his grip around Sabina's neck, choking her until she went limp and fell to the ground. In a final act of anger, Naeem kicked Sabina's stomach with all his might before rushing Nausea to the hospital. Meanwhile, Mobub called for an ambulance, which arrived nearly an hour later to take Sabina to the hospital. Tragically, 2 days later, Sabina and her unborn child were pronounced dead. She passed away at the age of 34. A week after the incident, Naeem was arrested at his home without resistance. During the investigation, the shocking truth unraveled. Mr. Mobub confessed that his relationship with Sabina had crossed all acceptable boundaries. It was more than a father-daughter relationship. He revealed that it all began years ago when he frequently stayed overnight at his farm, leaving Sabina alone with her 2 younger brothers, Nahid and Niloe. According to Mobub, Nahid and Niloe began coercing Sabina during his absences. Feeling powerless, Sabina eventually gave in to their demands. When she finally told her father about the abuse, Mobub became enraged and threw both of his sons out of the house. After that, Mobub cut all ties with them, and their whereabouts became unknown. Traumatized by the abuse, Sabina began sleeping in her father's room, seeking comfort and a sense of security. However, one night, boundaries were crossed, and their relationship turned physical. Over time, Sabina grew more attached and possessive, initiating encounters and demanding her father's attention. When Mobub remarried, Sabina's jealousy spiraled out of control. She did everything she could to drive her stepmother away and ultimately succeeded. She even managed to alienate her stepsister, Nausea, although Nausea continued visiting their father, much to Sabina's annoyance. Mobub admitted he had tried to distance himself from Sabina, particularly after she got married to Naeem. He hoped the marriage would provide her a fresh start. However, Sabina reportedly used the marriage only as a way to escape the stigma of being single. She never allowed Naeem to touch her, keeping their relationship distant until they divorced. For Naeem, the divorce and Sabina's manipulations left deep scars. Discovering the nature of her relationship with her father fueled his rage, driving him to seek revenge for all he had endured. Here's the shocking twist. Mr. Mobub eventually admitted that he had married Sabina. The wedding ceremony Nausea had stumbled upon earlier was, in fact, her father's marriage to his own daughter. The baby Sabina was carrying? It was Mobub's. According to him, this all happened because Sabina insisted she didn't want any man in her life except her father. She believed it was her role to take her late mother's place, no one else's. Nausea later testified in court, revealing that she had witnessed inappropriate and unnatural behavior between Sabina and her stepfather during the pandemic. She wanted to leave the house at the time but was stuck due to the lockdown and her unemployment. She also chose not to share this with her mother, fearing it would cause her emotional distress or worsen her health. Naeem, on the other hand, had never directly disclosed what he knew. He hinted at the truth, suggesting Sabina was pregnant without a husband, but left the investigation to unfold on its own. When the truth came out, it confirmed Naeem's worst suspicions. Something deeply wrong had been happening in that house for years. Nausea admitted that she harbored resentment toward Sabina, who had always treated her coldly and harshly. But her feelings toward Mobub were much more complex. Despite everything, Mobub had always been kind to her. He paid for her college tuition, secretly transferred her money to help her get by, and frequently called just to check on her well-being. While Nausea despised Sabina, the thought of Mobub facing punishment saddened her. Meanwhile, Naeem defended his actions in court, arguing that his attack on Sabina stemmed from years of pent-up anger and frustration. He insisted he had acted to protect Nausea after witnessing Sabina's violent behavior. In the end, the judges at the Rangpa Provincial High Court delivered their verdict. Naeem was found guilty of assaulting Sabina and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Mr. Mobub, for his part in the unlawful relationship with Sabina, received a reduced sentence of 3 years due to his advanced age. What lessons can we learn from this story?